gone to youth services instead of trying to play basketball or trying to do other things. We live far away from the church, and so we didn't always have the transportation, which was the main reason. But I'm thankful to see you here tonight, taking time in the beginning of this year to live for God. So I'm thankful for what the Lord is doing, and I pray the Lord will help me. I don't get this opportunity to speak to your generation, but I looked at my pastor a couple months ago, and I said to my pastor, Brother Gleason, I have my mind made up that from here on out, my focus is on this next generation. Your generation.
That's right.
is who I want to pour my life into. And I believe that God has great things in store for each.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
If you believe that, turn to somebody and say, preachers talk about me, I don't know about you. You know, some people just got it. Some people just have it. And what I mean by it is that they have that it factor.
Oh, yeah.
They have charisma. Can somebody say charisma?
Charisma.
They have that magnetic personality that just pulls people into their orbit. They have the skills to make meals. They have the talents and abilities, the intellect and the good looks that attracts people to them. They just have it. I had a cousin who had it like that. We went to middle school together. He was a year ahead of me. But he was cool, too cool for school. He was athletic, stocky built, good looking. Everybody loved him. All the girls loved him. He had it, or as your generation would say, he had Riz.
But
I didn't have Riz. I just didn't have it. However, even though my cousin was lovable, likable, everybody he had a cool name. His first name was Marlon. His last name was Partee. Partee. But when you just said Partee, everybody just wanted to be around my cousin and partay. He wanted to have fun. He loved to have fun. And of course, his mother, my aunt, she was a traveling RN, traveling nurse. And so my cousin, he always had the cool video games. I mean, he had a moped when nobody else had a moped. He was just, everybody wanted to be around him. But as we got older, things began to change. He did well for himself. He had a son, and his son is in college now. My cousin worked for Coca-Cola at one point. He was working for the fire department. I saw my cousin in 2012 at a Walgreens just around the corner from our church. My cousin didn't grow up in church. He had never stepped foot in the doors of our church that I can remember. But I remember saying to my cousin, Partee, the church is just around the corner. I would love for you to be my guest. Well, I'm happy to tell you that my cousin came to church that year, 2012. I didn't realize that he was there. We had over 1,000 people in that service. And I realized it would be my last service at my home church in Memphis. But when I was told that my cousin was there, he was there seeking God. And even though he had this magnetic personality, even though he had Riz, even though he had it, yet it was not enough to keep my cousin from taking his life right before Christmas in 2012. Because just having charisma, just having a magnetic personality, just having good looks, talent, and intellect is not enough. Let me just stop and say this to somebody. Just because somebody doesn't think that you've got it, just because somebody says, well, you don't have what it takes to make it, doesn't mean that God feels that way towards you.
Yeah, come on.
I just feel to tell some young person here tonight that the thoughts that God thinks towards you are good thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you a future and to give you a hope. God has great things in store for you. Just because somebody thinks that you don't have it. I'll never forget, it just dawned on me around Christmas. I was preaching in Kansas City, and I was like, you know what? I should hate this city. I should not like Kansas City. Because it was somebody from Kansas City that said, I don't have what it takes to make it playing basketball. He was the assistant coach of the basketball team that said, I'm from the Show Me State. You're too skinny. You can't play ball. And I was I mean, I wasn't as good as the number one guy in our school who was the second in the nation. I wasn't as good as some of those guys, but I was at least as good as a third of those guys on the team. And I said, you know what, that coach, he kept saying, you don't got it, you don't got it. And lo and behold, years later, when I went up to my high school, we got to talking. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm a traveling preacher. I'm an evangelist. Man, he shook my hand. He just thought the world of me. I mean, I guess I had it then. He didn't think I had it on the court. But I was just thinking to myself, I should have liked Kansas City, you know. But there was somebody who believed in me. There was a coach named Coach Rod that said, you've got it. You're just as good as anybody else on this court. Amen. He told me what I needed to do. Amen. He was rooting for me, but God had other plans for my life. Amen. He allowed me to break my leg, and that was the it to that. But just because somebody said that you don't have it, doesn't mean that God feels that way about you.
Amen. That's right.
The Bible tells us that there was a young man by the name of John Mark. When we first read about John Mark, he's in a prayer meeting. It's always good to be in a prayer meeting.
Oh, yeah.
No matter how young, how old you are, to be in a prayer meeting can change your life. John Mark was in his mom's home and they were praying for the Apostle Peter to be released from prison. That is when we first read about John Mark. But as time went on, the Bible tells us that John Mark got a chance to be involved in a missionary journey of the great Apostle Paul. The Apostle Barnabas was his uncle. And so he took his nephew, John Mark, along that trip. Barnabas was the mentor of Paul. And on their first missionary journey, John Mark had a chance to witness what we read about. The great miracles, signs, and wonders, people coming to God, their lives being changed until they came to the worst roadway in the world. It was the most dangerous spot in the world at that time.